everyone
Thank you very
who's
much, everyone.
you're all willing or that are willing to listen to us blather on about things that we know very little about, but are still interested in. Um, let's see. Let me. What happened? Oh, I got rid of me. That's fine. Don't need me. Um, let's put this one
Sorry,
in the forefront.
you disappeared.
Yeah, get rid of this one, and put me there,
Mm-hmm.
and so on. And Mercy Minor gave me a high five award. Thank you, dear.
That Mercy Minor, she must like you.
Yeah, yeah. I think she does. I think she does. Let's see. I will. Where we go? Invite Abyss to join us again.
Please do.
Here.
Yeah,
Yep.
great,
Um,
great.
I hope you got the invitation there, Abyss. Okay, so yeah. I know Jeff, you got things, you got a busy schedule today. Wednesday is my day off. I don't have any teaching. I've just got administrative things to do. Make sure all my attendance records are up to date and so on, things like that. But you
Yeah, I
actually have
had
to teach.
an hour and a half class online. So, and I've got another class online later, and a meeting online.
Hmm.
Yeah. So it's
Busy guy. Share. Hello, and Lindsay, welcome, welcome,
Lindsay,
welcome. You guys, you
Pennsylvania.
blessed me so just for showing up. I mean, and joining the conversation in whichever form you care to. I sent you invitations. You're very welcome to come up and either, as Abyss often does, or usually does, always does, not on camera, but just voice. So you're welcome to do that. Or, of course, enter your comments in the comments. Hey, Pennsylvania. That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. My neck of the woods, Pennsylvania.
Yes.
I'm a long way from there now.
Yeah. I have relatives on my father's side in Pennsylvania that had a coal mine on their land.
Wow. Right. Yeah.
It was one of those strip mine things, not the shaft, but just the open pit mine.
Sure.
Um,
Those were very, very well known, very common in my neck of the woods in Western Pennsylvania. Yeah. As
yes.
well as the regular mine, the underground mine shaft mines.
Mhm.
Yeah. Very, 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 very common. They started closing them down, of course, in the 1960s and 70s, but
Right. Yeah.
going on for a long time. And then actually in the 70s and 80s, strip mining was very, very common.
Mhm.
And
So
that was before they
I was
started to
there in
reclaim the
my
land.
teens, so it must have been the mid '70s when I was there. Yeah.
Okay. Nice, nice.
Iron mine in the town next to mine. Lots of mines in Pennsylvania. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
I should feel right at home, right?
Yeah. You're around Pennsylvania people.
I mean, I'm a miner, right?
Oh, yeah. Oh,
All
no,
right.
you're mine ore,
Right. Mine ore. That's right.
But you're not
but not a
minor with an
miner.
E. So
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I didn't say I could spell. I just teach English. I don't know how to spell it. Right. Okay. Let's see what our first question is. Is happiness just chemicals flowing through your brain or something more?
Interesting question.
Yeah. All right. Well, go for it, Jeff. You'll
Yeah.
be
Yeah.
our leadoff batter.
No, I think it's something more. Yeah, I think, it's interesting when you think about looking outside of yourself for things that will make you happy. I think that that is really not the right approach. Uh, for me, anyway. I try to just be happy first, right?
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I think I achieve it every day, waking up, and it's a new day to tackle some new things, new excitements. So I guess in that case, it is a bit of chemical flowing through my brain. But I think that, of course, people try to make money and try to run around and do a lot of things to make themselves happy. Uh, I think it's that may raise your endorphins, actually, sure. But I think it's more than that, though. It's more than just that. I think you have to start with happiness. Then you do things in your life, give a lot, experience a lot, and this even makes you happier. It makes you more happy. Yeah.
But
So
is
that's my
that
take.
increased happiness just more of the chemicals? I mean, that's kind of the question. Um,
I don't know. Is it only chemicals though? Because
oh,
the kind of the kind of the act of giving or doing something that makes you happier, right? Right. It can increase the chemicals, but I think even before chemicals are there, when you have the happiness factor already, it just increases everything. Yeah.
hmm. But I mean, it seems that biologically, we're just a basically a bag of water, enclosed in a membrane, that and our the what is us physically is just really a collection of chemical reactions, and so that happiness is on some base level, simply these chemicals flowing through certain parts of of that bag of protoplasm. um, so it seems that it is, strictly speaking, just
But
chemicals.
is that all we are, though? Just a bag of chemicals and protoplasm, and I mean, right? Is that all we
Right. I
are?
mean,
Can we
yeah. I mean,
actually
that is the fundamental question. Again, that's the mind body dualism question, right? Are we, is there more to us than what is determined by the laws of physics? Is there something, is there a soul, or whatever label you wish to attach to that non physical part of us, right? Is there a non-physical part of us, or is our consciousness, our feelings, our happiness, our emotions, is all that just an emergent process, from this complex physical uh, interactions, chemical reactions, and so on.
Yeah, right. I mean, and then you get into the question of consciousness, yes, and where did it arise, and that consciousness is fundamental,
Yep.
and we're all kind of connected to a universal, which I believe we're connected to kind of a universal energy. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you put something out there that you want to buy or want to achieve, if you put it kind of out there into the universe, things, in my experience, start lining up where eventually you're going to be able to accomplish that or have that item. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So
Abyss,
it's a
you've
tough question.
been quiet there. You want to weigh in on the question?
No, I was kind of appreciating the flow of conversation between you two. So I was just sort
Okay.
of like taking a seat back, and also I wanted to hear what Cher would have to say about it, but I guess she kind of dropped out. I hope
Right.
she'll be
Yeah.
able to join us.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I guess like in order to investigate happiness, I think it's quite important to invest to kind of like look into the opposite of happiness, which is depression, and we can treat depression through different drugs. Like you can have antidepressants in general, which could be SSRIs like serotonin reuptake inhibitors or ketamine, for example. These are very effective ways of treating depression, and they kind of instantly change the mood of the person. So in a way, our happiness is kind of tied to like the sort of like the reward system that we get. So say for example, if there's like some problem with your, you know, like I said, a dopaminergic area. So like dopaminergic would mean like, you know, neurons that are capable of transmitting dopamine. And if there isn't, you know, an imbalance of dopamine, you would actually notice it. And one of the key components in the brain that does regulate this is called the ventral tegmental area, or VTA for short, that actually supplies dopamine to the prefrontal cortex, which is like the, you know, the most frontal part of the brain, which actually regulates emotions and whatnot. So in a way, if you look at it from that perspective, I guess it's kind of, it makes sense to kind of conclude that happiness is rooted in some kind of chemical balance, because after all, we, I mean, unlike the reductionist approach of thinking that we're just like, you know, 70% water and, you know, mixed bags of chemicals, I would like to think like this is like a well choreographed um, chaos, if you will, that's kind of immersed into becoming us as sentient beings. So yeah, so that if you consider that, I guess like it's important to also note that whatever emotions that we exude, it's highly dependent on the chemical balance or imbalance that could exist in the brain. So that's my opinion.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of reflected in our language and the way we talk. I mean, we talk about "I'm sad" means I'm experiencing the emotional sadness or whatever. Or I'm happy, and yet we're not saying that we are equivalent to that emotion, but that we are experiencing it as if we are, again, something separate, right? In the same way that I am not this. I mean, I am not this body. If I lose a limb, or if I cut my hair or shave my beard, I am still me. And so if I am happy, it is still whatever that core thing that I reference as me, is still there, and it's experiencing these different things. It's in some ways has changed. Some aspect of it has changed, or something tethered to it, something connected to it has changed. But the problem with that I haven't resolved for myself is still that mind body duality. How does something that is not a physical thing, this this abstract idea of I that I have, how does that interact with a physical thing, right? What is that mechanism? And that's the difficulty. We don't have an explanation of that. It doesn't mean that one doesn't exist, but there are people that look at that difficulty, that the unexplainability of how a non-physical thing could control, how our mind can control our body. If our mind is separate from our body, if our mind is not simply an emergent property of this physical interaction, these chemicals swirling around in our brains, how does that mind control the body, right? And since we don't have an answer, we say, well, some people are ready to say, well, that obviously that can't be the answer, then, that we are just these emergent properties of the physical universe or whatever. But simply because we don't have the answer doesn't mean it's not possible, that it's not the right answer, right? So that really comes down to my whole philosophical the quandary that I find myself in philosophically. I want to believe that I am in some ways separate from, or more than, or and not simply reducible to the physical, but yet without any way of explaining it, without any evidence that anybody has a reasonable explanation of that interaction, I'm kind of left holding the back, wondering, just what I really can believe and what I can't. Just which camp I care to put myself in. Is there a mind body dualism or not? I'm uncertain. And that's why all these questions are interesting. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I can understand the self-preservation kind of dilemma, right? I mean, am I just, bits and pieces of like organic matter sort of assembled itself in a more structured like in a more structured way, or am I something more than that? I do get that, but I mean, nobody has an answer to that. In all fairness, like if you can go to like, um, I mean, you can be like too pedantic and just say like, we're just like a bunch of cells like coming together in a more structured manner. That's one solution, but also there are some things that we really don't know about. Like for example, the whole discussion about consciousness, like you just mentioned, and the idea of like self-preservation or selfness is kind of stored in the brain, but where exactly in the brain that remains to be detected. So I think it's kind of hard to side with both, but I guess like my angle was that the fact, I mean, the mere fact that we are kind of swayed by simple chemical imbalance might trigger some emotions in us. So even if you can extricate the selfness or the whole notion about consciousness from the or like at least like the mind, the body mind duality of Descartes, for example. If you just like extricate those things, and if you just look at yourself as someone who's easily perturbed by some kind of homeostasis of different chemicals, or like lack of homeostasis of chemicals, then I guess it's probably like fair to say that like our emotions are sort of derived from the, like I said, the balance and imbalance of chemicals. That because deep down, even in our brain, I mean, we don't have, even like our brain is kind of like wired together. It's not physical connection. So if you, I don't know if you guys heard about neurotransmitters. So dopamine is actually one of the neurotransmitters. So the neurotransmitters are chemicals that are released by neurons in order to communicate with adjacent neurons that are connected to them. So that's how electric impulses are actually propagated throughout the brain. I mean, in a more choreographed manner, as opposed to like, all firing together, which is technically seizure, right? So, but yeah, so even at a more granular level, I think our brain is kind of operating in a chemical form, because we do have neurotransmitters, and whether that says something about where we derive our emotions, or where we have like where our selfness and even our consciousness lies, that remains to be debated on a more philosophical ground and a more also scientific ground as well. But nonetheless, I think it's important to also mention that we're I mean, the kind of like the reductionist approach to saying that we're just like I said, chemicals kind of like congregating together, and in a more choreographed manner is probably another approach to discern, or at least like to explain the um, the emotions that are triggered in us.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, we know that chemicals clearly influence our emotions. People throughout history have used various chemicals in order to alter their feelings at certain times. I mean, probably the most prevalent throughout history, alcohol and things like that, which is a chemical that, right, Jeff, a little red wine at the right time, can smooth things out, right. But beyond that, the other more mind altering chemicals and so on that people have used at different times, as as opposed to, I mean, they've set up in kind of opposition to the more natural things that your body produces, like the dopamines, the endorphins and so on, that can be triggered and released within our minds without the input without the input of these other chemicals. it seems like that, but to me, it seems like it's all part of the same spectrum. I mean, whether you, that chemical change that you're trying to initiate within your brain, within the chemistry of your brain, whether that requires an outside chemical catalyst or it's something that can be done within the chemicals, within yourself, given some stimulus or something. Again, it seems to me it's still chemicals. It's still the same thing.
Yeah, I agree. It's fascinating. Chemicals are definitely influential. Yeah, I think people with certain mental problems, such as schizophrenia or some such thing, yes, can benefit from introduction of chemicals. Indeed, right? And of course, they are influential. Um, of course, if you're clinically depressed, you're given medication that I suppose does make you happy in a way, right? Um, and but it's fascinating too, uh, how it actually does that, and yes, how it influences our brain and our mental state of being. But what about
Right.
before that? Is there a before that? Is there a generation of happiness uh, before chemicals flow around, if you will? Do you know what I'm getting at?
Well, you need to perceive, right, in order to emote or to react to a situation, right? So the brain takes some amount to kind of process things, at least like on an emotional level, right? So yeah, I mean, that's actually a really good question, because because technically, like the thalamus is actually the one that regulates, emotions, at least from what we know. And I
Mm.
could be wrong about this because it's been a while since I've dealt with neuroscience, but so it kind of like it's like um, something that kind of coordinates like lots of stimulus, like whether it's whether it's a sense of smell or vision or if it's sound through the ears, like it has the ability to coordinate, and you kind of react to things emotionally because it's kind of like hard coded in the limbic system and then the thalamus, to be more specific. So so yeah, I mean, it it's a very thought provoking question to say that, where is like that happiness, like where does it begin?
Yeah.
Because at some point you have to react to being happy, and all your dopamine or oxytocin would just shoot up or something like that. But that has to originate at some point, like some place. And that is a very interesting question. I'm really curious, like where like if there are people that are way trained than I. Of course there are, but I'll be really interested to hear their opinions.
Definitely,
um, and
definitely.
also like to go on a tangent, I just want to like I was reminded of, like, not to take up so much um, time here because Cher's here with us. Uh, so um, so there was one story that so in the early days, like I think it was in the 90s, one of the techniques that was used to treat Parkinson's disease was uh, to provide patients with what chemical known as L-DOPA. So L-DOPA is sort of like the precursor to dopamine. So what that means is that through some chemical reaction, L-DOPA would be converted to dopamine. And people that suffer from Parkinson's disease are those that don't have dopamine um, in their system. So there
Mm.
are like two parts in the brain that actually provide dopamine. One is the VTA, like I mentioned. The other is called substantia nigra. So people that have Parkinson's, um, like at least like the substantia nigra, which is the other dopamine source for the Parkinson's patients, is kind of like either scars or is the neurons don't produce enough dopamine, so people just like tremble because they cannot coordinate their motor system. So some of the patients were actually given this chemical, like I said, which is L-dopa. One of the inadvertent things that happened was that people start to react to the drug in a positive way, like their kinesia, or like the gait or something. These are like some of the physical cues that you take so that you can measure how the person, or how severe a person has when it comes to like having Parkinson's disease. And these people actually showed improvement, and it was very promising. But the inadvertent aspect of it was that some of the patients were engaging in, um, like spending their monies in casinos, and like gambling and stuff. Or like they were like thrill seekers all of a sudden, and people didn't know like what to do with that. Or at least like the researchers didn't know what to do with that. And in fact, even like some of them start to report that time has slowed down for them because they're like really hyperactive. So, so in a way, I guess like this, the reason why I mentioned this, because even though like I said, that there should be some kind of a balance that needs to be stricken between like the different chemicals that exist in our brain. So in a way, you can correlate most of the mental conditions, either congenital or develop later in state and like later in life, can be attributed to some of the chemical imbalances. I mean, not always. That's not always true, but for the most part, for the most part, it that applies because we can treat those using some kind of drug intervention. So that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
Fascinating stuff.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay. Yeah. Share is here. Yeah. Share. Did you have something you'd like to contribute? Love to hear from you.
Hi, guys.
Hello.
Hi, Cher.
Um, Not a whole lot, but just sitting back and listening as I was trying to work my way here and there and wherever I ended up. Um,
Yeah.
I mean, it got me to thinking too. I mean, what about right at birth? And you've got this newborn baby, and what do we all do at 4 to 6 weeks with a baby? We try to get them to smile. They don't have a chemical reaction outside of the body that's causing them. They already have these chemicals within. What's causing those chemicals to have them to react that way? Um, is it part of their personality, or is it a chemical reaction, or does it depend on the amount of chemicals that are in their brain? There are some babies that when they're born, they do have a deficit in some chemical, and they will smile continuously. Um, and it's just part of their personality. They can't do much else, but they can sure smile. Um, to me, I'm not sure if it's all chemical or if there's an ounce of personality that's mixed with that chemical that causes that baby to react in the way that it does. That's my only 2 cents I wanted to add.
Okay.
Fascinating stuff. Yeah.
That's actually a great point. Yep.
Mm.
Mm.
I mean, I understand all this other stuff. I mean, with norepinephrine, I can't even say it.
Norepinephrine.
Norepinephrine or any of the other drugs that you know. What's the one with L? Lithium. All these different drugs that you can take, whether you're happy or sad or you want to feel a certain way. There's not one medicine you can't find out there
Mm.
that will change the levels on your thinking, whether you're happy or sad, or you're not feeling happy enough, or you're not feeling sad enough because you're always happy and you just need to relax. Um, but for a newborn child, they don't have all those options. So
Yeah.
that's me
Interesting.
where you have to start at that level and see from there how much is chemical reaction within the brain and how much is something more that's mixing with that chemical reaction to cause that baby to have that reaction with their mother. or their father.
Right. But I guess like it's also important to ask if there's like an emotional trigger for babies to smile, or is it like simply reacting to a facial cue, right? Because I mean, I don't know if there is a right way of finding this out unless like you kind of place the babies in fMRIs, which is a very unlikely thing to do.
Right, but we're talking
But
about chemicals flowing through the brain. We're not talking
right,
about
right.
emotional
But the thing is,
feelings
like
of baby.
babies actually pick up on facial cues, and I think that that's one of the things that they try to excel at, especially when they're very little, because there's so much connection in the
Yeah.
brain, if you will.
Okay, well,
So,
are adults picking up on facial cues as well? If someone smiles at an adult and the adult smiles back, or is that a chemical reaction?
well, I mean, it's a little more complicated than that. So there's a part of the brain that actually recognizes faces and different emotional states. The brain is called the fusiform gyrus. So people that actually have um, like with defective fusiform gyrus have um, a condition called um, aphantasia, or is it like aphantasia, or like but they're not able to recognize faces if they see people that they know very well. So it's called face blindness. There's a technical name for it. I kind of forgot, but the thing is, like, what I'm saying is that there's a part of the brain which is highly specialized in recognizing faces and the emotional cues attached to them. So it's not just chemical, because like our brain is kind of categorized in such a way that certain parts of the brain are very specialized in doing certain tasks. That's why, like, for example, people that have strokes in their left temple, or at least like temporal lobe, um, tend to have difficulty synthesizing speech, or like talking in a very gibberish manner, because their speech processing center has been affected because of the stroke. So in such a way that what I'm trying to imply is that the brain is very much organized than we thought. It's not just
Whoops. Oh,
oops.
Well, that
okay.
makes sense.
Yeah.
But it's like if I bumped into Jeff just walking down the street and I bumped into him, is it a chemical reaction?
Right.
My brain that's causing me to smile at him. Um, what if he's frowning and he's in a hurry? But I am still
Mhm.
smiling at him. There are
Mhm.
people like that. I mean,
Well, so to
Yeah.
to answer some of the things that you just mentioned, I'm not saying it's purely chemical. Like I made my opinion, at least. It was just I was actually saying that we don't know, like, where that
yeah,
interface, or like the transition happens between seeing a person and emotionally reacting to that, to the or at least like emotionally reacting in a
right.
happiness or whatever way. So I'm actually telling you that there are different parts of the brain, but we just don't know, like, what happens in between. It's like there's a hidden variable there that I think like neuroscientists are still trying to work on, trying to decode, if that makes sense.
Mm. Mhm.
Mm, mm.
Yeah, and we're back to the question, right? Where does happiness begin, and how is it generated? Yeah, really
Yeah.
fascinating. Which could actually lead us on to the next question, Dan.
Okay. All right. I can
Maybe
do that.
maybe magical thinking generates happiness, or
Oh, is that what that meant?
to,
Oh,
to put it better, why are humans so susceptible to magical thinking? Yeah.
yeah.
Magical thinking.
Well, when
Yeah.
I read that question, I interpreted it as, I mean, things that we can't explain. The
Are
things
they
where
easy?
our understanding, our science hasn't yet reached the point that they can explain those things, that we're ready to say, oh, that's magic. I mean, in the same, I mean, I think that's my interpretation of where a lot of religious beliefs come from. It's like, okay, we can't understand why the sun rises, so that must be a magical being. It must be a god that is causing that or something like that. So that's the way I read that question, but maybe there's another interpretation.
Well, yeah. What is magical thinking? We have to look at that phrase first. Yes, and exactly what is magical thinking. Yeah, I kind of interpreted it as people who are attracted to, kind of like you said, Dan, the aspect of magic, or being able to change things magically, or believing in, for example, white magic, or things like that. Yeah,
I mean, yeah, the same things, like the belief in ghosts, it seems to be magical thinking. Again, people have an experience that they can't explain, and so therefore it is something supernatural, something otherworldly, something magical, is the way I saw it. And going, even, as another example, the explorers who go to a remote area of the world, to a people that have no knowledge of technology, and show them a bit lighter, and the magic of being able to produce a flame like that. Oh, that's magic, this person, because they don't understand it. They're automatically, the human tendency is to attribute that to something magic.
Yeah. I think, I mean, I interpreted it as more positive, kind of magical, wow, wizardry, like Harry Potter almost, right?
Mm-hmm.
Doing a spell and making something happen. It's a shame we don't have actually more about the question.
Oh, but I mean, that's what makes it interesting. I mean, the same collection of words has created slightly different interpretations in each of our minds, and which becomes a part of an interesting part of the conversation, I think.
True.
Yeah.
True. How about Abyss and Share? What do you guys think?
I
Sure,
have
go ahead.
battling swords.
Yeah.
I definitely have battling swords between believing 2,000 years worth of Christianity in a Bible, or believing everything scientifically based, because I'm rooted in scientific based facts. And for me to think otherwise is against my sword. But that sword's always battling me, because I was raised with Christian beliefs. So, like I said, I am a basket of battling swords. And I do think humans are susceptible to this thinking, because they want to know where they came from, where they're going to, why they're here. So they have to create some kind of myth in order to generate happiness for them to get through the life that we have. Otherwise, what's the purpose? If there's no purpose, then why? I mean, life is futile, because it's going to start, it's going to end. Why put yourself through all this other pain and agony? But like I said, to me, it's a double-edged sword for my part, because I don't know which my scientific belief is stronger, but I can't let go of the Christian belief that I have. Other people, have their Buddha beliefs, or their Quran beliefs, whatever, but their Catholic beliefs. I just battle myself constantly. Anyways, how about you, Abyss?
Yeah, so I don't see that to be like a ubiquitous human condition to be susceptible to magical thinking, because the way I see it is that it requires some kind of priming, right? It requires some kind of prior experiences for you to think, to relate anything that you see which is inexplainable to some kind of magical thing. Because like, to give you an example, like, suppose that there is like something that you're really good at, like, for example, um, you know Dan, you're a linguist, so if you're presented, like, for example, a very esoteric Latin text, right? um, you probably can decipher parts of it because it kind of relates to English. So that kind of requires your prior experience and understanding, and your profound knowledge on English can be applied to deciphering something entirely different. That's why, like, for example, if I introduce a problem of neurobiology to someone that studies yeast or any kind of microbiology, they would have some idea. I mean, they may not know everything. They'll have some idea. If you give a cosmologist what an astronomer would study, they will also have some idea. So what I'm trying to imply is that it depends on like what kind of prior experiences that you have. So I think like society for the most part is kind of left this explanation about nature to the experts, right? So you just like outsourcing your thought in a way, like let the experts deal with this. And for you, even the simple act of like having a phone or your computer is just going to appear magical, when in fact it is not. It can be deconstructed in a more organized and a more elaborate and technical way, but you just don't have the will to probably go into it. So that's why I said it's very subjective. So I don't see that to be like a totally human, like a complete human condition. Of course, like sometimes our brains actually take shortcuts. Like for example, when you're presented with a surprise, for example, your immediate response might be fear or like surprise or something, because our brain is still it still has that fight or flight level encoded in it, even though we are also capable of advanced thinking, that we have that basic instinct to survive. So considering those things, I guess like um, yeah, I think it's important to make a distinction between like what's truly a magical thinking and who is actually prone to think in a magical way. And I think what Cher just said is also very true. Like the human endeavor is riddled with so many explanations trying to define what nature is, right? And that's why we have deities, we have cultures, we have religions that span for millennia. And I think that by itself it requires some kind of priming, because it did not stem from nowhere. Like somebody has to make that up, and for you to for that to be passed on to progenies and next for generation, just for so that whenever they're encountered with something entirely new, that they would consider that to be magic. But that's my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yeah. It seems to me that humans, whenever we approach that wall of the limits of our knowledge, and there's something beyond that. There's something that we don't understand. We don't have the knowledge. We don't have the tools at the time. We don't have we haven't developed the base knowledge in order to be able to approach the problem in a methodical, scientific way. When it's too many steps beyond us, that but there's still part of us that demands an answer. Like the classic example, like we said, so death. Nobody has any information about what happens after death. I mean, we have scientists that, I mean, I discount all the near-death experience because that's near death. It's not there's never been, I believe, a case where somebody has died and has actually died and come back. I mean, regardless of what the different people say about that, they hadn't actually crossed over. To me, that's a one-way street. And and because it is that, we have developed all kinds of myths and so on to extrapolate beyond what we know, because we it's something that we don't know, we cannot know, but we demand within ourselves some kind of an answer. What is going to happen? Because we are, as a human species, are able to anticipate the future, and so we also want to anticipate the future beyond what we actually have any tools of anticipating, the ability to anticipate that. So I mean, and so magic, religion, whatever, seems to me that and I think that is universally human. I see it. I mean, every society has come up with some kind of, something after, after death. What happens, right? So to me, that's the epitome of magical thinking. Something happens that's unexplainable. So it's magic, it's religion, it's God, it's whatever, right?
That's why we need a dream recording device.
A dream recording device?
Yeah. Well, I mean, like when person is transitioning to death, I guess like we should, if we are able to record what they're seeing, I guess that will be one way of validating.
Well, like they're trying to record ghosts.
Well, yeah.
I don't believe it. Even like I said, to me, if we see them, even if we see the images that they see, right up until the moment of death, right, that they're still alive. They haven't seen what's beyond that yet, right? We can see, all the way up. So all the electrons that are firing, all the images they're seeing, still doesn't tell us what happens after, right?
Although there was one little boy that was in India. There was one little boy in India that I guess told his parents about him being married before and having children. And he knew the names of the kids and the names of his wife, and they did exist in another area somewhere. I don't know if it was a country or what, but they did exist. Totally unexplainable phenomenon.
Yeah, there are a few cases like that. Yeah.
I mean, I would strongly ask for, some kind of confirmation, or at least like some kind of proof for that. I mean, there are so many claims in this world. I'm not trying to discredit the voice claim, but there are so many claims out there. It's just it's important to kind of like take everything with a grain of salt.
Well, that's what we do. We take it with grains on a scientific basis, and we can do the layers and sedimentary things of our times and go based on that.
Even even if that boy's experience, legit. I mean, he interpreted it as that. Again, I don't know what consciousness is. I don't know if consciousness, that my consciousness is a separate thing, or if it's just a temporary pocket or bubble within the overall universal consciousness. And so, so all these kind of things. So maybe he tapped in, maybe, what that was his experience of tapping into this universal consciousness, and gave him a glimpse of something that he wouldn't normally be able to have any knowledge of. But that still doesn't say anything about after death, right? To me, it doesn't,
And also, I guess to add to your point, we probably touched upon this in like earlier broadcasts, but it's really hard for the brain to discern what it's really seeing, because it's deprived of oxygen, right? It's in a hypoxia state. So anything that you say may not have some kind of factual, or it may not be kind of based on reality, because your brain can make stuff up because like it's really oxygen deprived, and you just don't see what kind of activities are taking place within the brain. So that kind of adds to the lack of credibility, like you just mentioned. Even if people are even if people report some kind of near-death experience, that fact by itself kind of imposes some kind of pressure, I would say, in their stories.
Okay, all right, all good. So the next question, if you don't mind me moving on, the next question: is it possible that some animals are self-aware and think about their ability to think? Or do you think, and even if you don't think it's the case right now, do you think it's possible that other animals besides the human species would be able to develop this self-awareness?
I think it's possible that animals that are closely related to humans, the non-human primates, if you will, have some self-awareness and are able to
I'm
think.
looking at Abyss's picture of his ape sitting there. I'm sorry.
That's true. That's true. I don't know if I would. I don't know if they can think about their ability to think. That meta, that kind of cognition. I don't know if I would go that far.
Yeah. But I mean, yeah. I don't know if they think about their ability to think, but yeah, I mean, I think they that there are animals that recognize themselves as individuals, and obviously, and recognize the relationships that they have. They're self-aware of themselves as a separate entity from the rest of their species, the rest of their group. Do they think about thinking? I mean, yeah, that's really hard. But I mean, I don't see any reason why another species wouldn't be able to, and not necessarily one that's closely related. I mean, that arguably animals like dolphins could be possibly the second most intelligent animals on this planet, or something. I mean, so not necessarily primates. There's no reason to be that primate centric thinking, and yeah, and even very simple, I mean, relatively simple organisms that have, I think, an enhanced, at least beyond most humans, an enhanced ability of communing, a communal interaction, like ants or bees that can communicate and act almost like a single unit, even though it's comprised of a whole number of individual organisms. That is something.
They are pretty smart.
Yes, they are.
Amazing in itself. Yeah, sure.
So
more instinctual though, and not really thinking.
I don't know.
Perhaps. Yeah. Abyss, what do you think?
So I think
yeah.
we as in human species actually benefited because we don't have natural, at least that we escaped predation. So way that kind of helped us to kind of think about some things which normally we wouldn't think if we're like in the jungle and there's like a predator next to us. So I think it's the same thing for like non-human primates and other animals as well, because like this has been like really tested out. And even crows, actually, crows and ravens can recognize themselves in the mirror. So there was this whole notion that you probably need some kind of reticulated, which is like sort of like a crumbled kind of brain structure, right? As opposed to like a smooth brain. That was the whole idea. Like you need to have that kind of brain structure to have higher cognition. But what turned out to be the truth is that even though crows and ravens, even though they don't have reticulated brain structure, even though like their brain is pretty much smooth, they're capable of very complex thought, and they're like I said, they can recognize themselves in the mirror. They have like they're dead. They're very good at skills, like they're very good at problem solving. And it's not just those, like elephants, for example, can excel humans' ability to memorize, or at least like to have an indelible memory for a very long time, because their survival depends on that. And the matriarch and the herd of elephants has more memories of what happened in her lifetime than anybody else, probably like on this planet, I would say. But so like even dolphins, like you just mentioned, I mean that their brain is actually on average larger than us, and what's really surprising is that the limbic system, which is like I said, kind of important for empathy and like thinking about others, kind of mirroring yourself or your position, um, and like with respect to the person or the other individual that you see. Dolphins have that too, and they're very much altruistic in a way. Even elephants are altruistic because you hear all those stories like people drowning been rescued by dolphins. So um, I guess like the intelligence part is there, but like I said, if these animals don't have natural predators to worry about, if they are purely engaged in like more serene and um, you know um, less dangerous environment, I think they have the tendency to kind of move on to like the next evolutionary ladder. So that's generally my opinion. Of course, like there are some things that helped us as human beings, like the fact that we have opposable thumbs to craft devices that kind of like helped us to advance technology in a way. But but then again, I mean, like when it comes to mental faculties, like we're you know our, our capabilities are kind of limited in a way that like for example, chimpanzees can memorize more
Oh,
numbers, or at least like on a simple flash compared to other animals. So so in a way, I think uh, it's important to draw like where uh, what is like the intelligence or the ability to be self-aware, and would that actually allude to to think about thinking, or to think about to have like some kind of self-reflection. And I think that kind of merits a larger debate than this, but
Sure.
that's generally my opinion.
Yeah, I think it's impossible to know for sure.
mm.
We can ask an animal, hey, did you think it was bad to go out and kill that other animal?
Well, actually, gorillas can sign. You can teach gorillas. I
Yeah.
don't know if you heard about this, but Coco the gorilla
Sure.
actually memorized over 2,000 vocabulary, so she could communicate pretty much with everyone. So, of course, there's a language barrier, like you just mentioned, but you can also like meet them halfway, right? For example, I think like some oceanographers, or like like whale biologists, I think they developed a way to decipher dolphins' calls, because dolphins have individual names for each other, which is really really amazing. And they can tune their pitch based on what kind of sound is out there, because ever since the industrialization, that there has been lots of noise on the water, and sound actually travels faster in water than air. So they're able to modify their pitch and all. So yeah, I just wanted to add those things, like we just need to move like uh, meet them halfway so that we can understand what they're saying, or we can train them sign language, either way.
And that's the key word right there, is why I disagree with Abyss. We can train them. I don't believe they're self-aware and think about their ability to think, which is what the question is. We can train them. We can teach elephants, little tricks. We can teach dolphins what to do. Most animals are already built with a fight or flight response. Um, Given any circumstance beyond what we can train them, they're going to follow their instinctive herd and background anyway, and either run away or get killed or be part of the food chain or whatever. Um, I even the monkey or the ape, if they're given a chance to go back to the wild, they're still they're not thinking about, oh, I'm in the wild, what am I going to do next? They're
Mhm.
pre-programmed. In my thought process is that they all already know what to do, what they're supposed to do within their herds or within their pods or group or whatever. um Same with birds. We can train pigeons to do flights and to take messages back and forth or what have you, go to different faraway places. But leave them alone, they're going to fly wherever they're supposed to fly in the winter. You know, to me, that's just what they do. It's we can train them different, but they're going to follow their instincts anyway, more robotic than the ability to think. Did I totally
I would
confuse that?
I would disagree with you, sure, because the reason why I mentioned that we have to train them is for us to communicate a two-way, or at least establish a two-way communication in order for them to tell us what they think. But there are so many animals that have so much cunning ability. Even you don't expect, like, for example, a jumping spider is more and more cunning than you think, but it requires a human's ability to sit and observe because for some reason those animals have developed some kind of a natural tendency um, to to have like more instinctive approach to confront whatever is facing them. So I think it's us that should be able to understand what they're going through. I don't think they are very mechanistic, as you put it. Of course, you can say that they have natural tendencies to do whatever, but we've seen this like the examples I mentioned, like elephants and dolphins. We've seen that they have altruistic nature without any human training, like without any human intervention. And the bee colonies that we like, after so much research, we now know that they are able to communicate through dancing, and ant colonies can survive because like they have very much effective communication between them, and the labor is actually highly organized. So I think it's up to us to actually understand nature, because I think even though it's not linguistic, language based communication like we have as species, but they do have some kind of cognition, even though whether we can call that
Well, we could
like
learn to follow.
self-thinking or not, but they are able to, they're able to communicate and survive because they have evolved to this level, and they have adapted to this level. Sorry, I interrupted you.
No, I interrupted you. I'm sorry. Um, but I mean, we could learn how to observe and follow, like a bee colony or these different animals, to see what their behavior is. But to me, that's still their evolving behavior within their own group. Um, and it to me that's a learned behavior within their group, not something that they have the ability to think about. I just think it's natural evolution within their group.
But
Um,
isn't human behavior also learned behavior? Like, for example, you wouldn't have learned how to speak English if you haven't learned it.
we have the ability to think though,
um
and to think about
but
our thinking.
uh, so that's what I'm saying. Like, this is a very anthropocentric kind of reasoning. So that's why I said, like, we have to kind of cross over and probably investigate how animals think, because we've given them, like, mirror test, and the dot test, for example, where they scientists actually place ink on their faces to see if the animals are gonna scrub it off their face. I mean, these are the tests that we devise, which we think are ways of to understand softness, but um, I guess, like, there, what I'm trying to say is that there is more that we don't know, and um, yeah, because, like,
I'll agree with that.
yeah,
Did you
because, like,
guys, sorry to interrupt. Did you guys want to continue this conversation? I'm
oh,
gonna have to
sorry,
dip out.
I
I'm
noticed that there
sorry.
was a time limit.
No,
Sorry.
if you need to go, Jeff, that's cool. I'll stick
Yeah.
around for a while.
Okay. Yeah, I need to go, but you guys please continue.
Yep.
I'll check it out later. Of course, I've got a really busy day. I've got to grab a bite and then
Yep. No
other
worries.
stuff. So
All
great
right. Good seeing
conversation,
you, Jeff.
guys. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Thanks,
Yep.
Jeff.
All right,
Bye.
I
bye.
hope we didn't
Bye.
take over your philosophy lesson.
No.
Nope, not at
No,
all.
it's awesome. It's great. No worries. Yeah. Bye
Okay.
bye.
Bye bye. Okay, cool.
Bye.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a difference between listening to you guys. There's a difference between the question, do animals think or think about thinking, and do animals think the way we do, which are two different questions. I mean, again, being, we're ethnocentric, we believe that thinking is, the thing that we do, but yet that may be too, too limiting in our own thoughts. What animals do is, I think clearly, even from that narrow perspective, is thinking. Do they think about thinking, or their ability to think? Yeah, maybe they do, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they think about it in the same way that we do. So, yeah, again, getting away from this human-centric, this ethnocentric type of thinking ideas is, I think, necessary, or a good idea at least. Yeah.
Yeah, I fully agree because I mean, so much has changed over the last 200 years when it comes to understanding our nature. And I think there's plenty more to be investigated. So even like there is a recent publication that actually showed that almost all animals, even like insects, like even like if you go down to like the most smallest ones, which normally wouldn't have the complex cellular structure like we do, can actually learn from each other, and that kind of tells you one thing. Like the bee dance, for example, it's a learned behavior, or could be like embedded in their genes. I mean that will be left to be seen, but there is ability, or there is a gap for learning based on behavior. And I think it's fair to say that as long as animals that we know have brains, like fully active brains, then I think I think it's a fair assessment to say that there's some level of learning ability, and to think about self, although like to varying degree. I mean, it depends on like the animal's complexity. But yeah, I mean that's generally my opinion.
Yeah.
Sharon,
It
what do you think?
it all makes sense. I mean, it just depends on how complex you want to be or how simplistic you want to be. Yes, maybe they think within their own little groups, and dolphins sit there and talk to each other with their own little names and think about you know what kind of fish they're going to have for lunch. We don't know, and we're never going to know. It may take another 100 million years before anyone finds that out. I don't know. But right now, I don't think that they're self aware about their ability to think. That's just my opinion.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Well, I mean, like opinions are always appreciated. It's
Mm.
not about. I like the last thing this thing should be like is debate, but it's just like to voice our opinions. And like I said,
Yeah, I mean,
yeah.
a major thrust of this whole thing is that these are all questions that there are no correct answers to, right? I mean, there is no right answer. That's why they're still philosophical questions, which is what
I'm going to
makes
think
them
about it all
interesting.
night now. Now I'm going to think about it all night long. You know that.
Well, and also depends on like whom you bring to the conversation, right? Because if it's a primatologist, they probably would give you a very interesting idea. Like if you bring Jane Goodall, I mean, if you could book her,
Oh, that's true.
that's simply great. Or we have like entomologists here, yeah, Isabel Betancourt, that actually studies insects, and she shows like different, the complexity of behavior and adaptation mechanism and insects that I never even dreamed of, and just kind of led me to believe that there is some complexity that we have yet to investigate, because we kind of you know kind of like brought ourselves on a higher level of evolutionary ladder, what in fact we're pretty much connected to everything else. And I think the more we know about other animals, I think we'll have more introspection on how we're built and how we operate.
That's very true.
Has anyone read the book, The Hephaestus Plague? It's an old science fiction book. I can't remember the author now. I read it years ago. Hephaestus
Yeah.
Plague. It's a story of there was some kind of drilling or something going on. Anyway, somehow there was an insect that was located deep within the Earth's crust. An insect that was brought up, and it was a unique insect. And it was crossbred with I don't know, some like another it seemed to be closely related insect, and the offspring produced individuals were just simple insects, but as these offspring that were produced as a brood, as a group, showed intelligence, and they were actually able to read, and they could actually communicate by as a group, forming letters and words, with the members of their group and so on, which I thought was an interesting idea. This idea that the individual was a simple thing, kind of like our brain cells are alone are just a simple organism, a simple physical structure, and yet together they make a complex brain. And that was kind of the idea behind that story, is that these insects, and I mean, they became, it was a science fiction thing, and these insects actually became a threat to man, because of their intelligence and so on. But yeah, that's the kind of thing, that this, looking at insects, simple organisms on their own may be simple, like our brain cells are fairly simple, and yet put them together, and they're quite amazing as a group organism, taken that way. Yeah.
Tell you what, though, like if a worm actually, if those baby worms are able to teach it themselves how to communicate, or like how to read and write at that stage, at the very early stage, they're probably smarter than humans.
Yeah.
Sorry, Shara.
No, I was just going to say that gal that's the entomologist on here on HAPS, I mean, she said there are still like thousands of species of bugs that are yet to be discovered. And so that's colonies and other species that we know nothing about.
Yeah.
Yeah. And one thing I'm curious about, I mean, so it seems to me, again, so ethnocentric, to believe that humans are at the top of some kind of chain, the top chain, simply because, I mean, yes, intellectually, I think, our cognitive abilities are probably at the top, but is that necessarily the best choice? I mean, that's a choice. I mean, you could argue that, the cockroach maybe is evolutionarily, more adapted to, the possibilities of what could happen on this planet than humans are. I mean, they can survive radiation levels that are higher than humans can. They can, they're able to adapt to a wide variety of climates and so on. So what is, this kind of, again, we look at it, we can think more than these other animals, but in what way is that any kind of superiority? I don't necessarily see that.
Well, perhaps that little individual amoeba that they can find in water, that if it gets in your body and it eats and kills your brain, perhaps that's at the high end of the food chain, because it can kill us immediately. We don't know.
Yeah. But also, like, I was about to say, yeah, sorry, like, I got lost. Like, I mean, you guys go ahead. I'm probably thinking about what I was about to say.
Well, I was thinking about all the bugs and animals and viruses that we get, and bacteriums that kill us. Aren't they stronger than we are? I mean, we still don't have the right medicines to combat a lot of things. So does that make them at a high end of the food chain and we're lower?
Right. That's, it's those kind of thoughts, those kind of ideas that convince me not to be a vegetarian. No, seriously, because you start thinking about it and say, oh, animals, they feel pain, and they crave freedom, and so on. The things, so things that we can relate to, and as you go farther down, or farther down. I mean, maybe that's a relativistic term that I shouldn't even use, but other animals, are not so much, or plants, because they cannot move freely the way animals can, so therefore they're okay to use for food, and yet there are animals, what is that? That there's an animal, a single-celled or a simple animal in the water that can produce its own food. It has chlorophyll.
Oh yeah, I don't
Algae.
know the name.
No, not algae, but yeah, it's because algae is a plant. This is actually an animal that can produce its own food through photosynthesis, because it has chlorophyll and so on. I can't remember what it is, but anyway, there is that. So it's like it's on the border between plants and animals, and so like wherever you draw that line, okay, this is above this line, or on this side of the line, it's okay to eat, and on this side of the line, it's not. It's like I can never draw that line. It's impossible. Are insects okay to eat? Are earthworms okay to eat? Or
It
I mean,
depends
there
on what day
is
of
no
the week
line.
it is. Because one day of the week, lettuce can give you some kind of bacteria, you know, and another day of the week, it's an animal that can give you some kind of bacteria.
Yeah.
So I guess well, I also remembered what I wanted to say, but I'm kind of gonna tie this up to that discussion. So we're not completely unique when it comes to interacting with our environment. In fact, we're by evolutionary standards, I mean, if you really consider us to be part of the wilderness, will not survive because we're very unique individuals. The only fortitude that we have is our ability to run long distances. Besides that, we don't have a strong immunity like bats. We don't have muscular texture, or like the ability to have like high muscle density like
The other
like the
primate.
bovine or the primates, other primates. Um, we don't have cunning ability, or at least that we don't have the like we're lacking so many qualities to actually.
Oops, a little
Where'd
bit
you
of
go?
glitch in the connection there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, but yeah, what he's getting at is very true. Yeah, it reminds me another book that I read, The Once and Future King, talking about King Arthur, and during when King Arthur was young, as a young boy, he was trained by Merlin by turning him into all these different animals, and each animal had its strength or weakness or whatever, and
Yeah.
so on. And maybe you're familiar with that book, and at the end, there was a story where the story is all these fetuses, which basically, as we're developing in our mother's womb, we all pass through these stages. We have gills at one point and tails and so on, right? All these different stages that seem to reflect our evolutionary path to becoming human. And God was asking these fetuses what things that they wanted. And some of them wanted, strong forearms and sharp claws, for the to dig through the earth with ease and so on, or huge sharp teeth and jaws, to be able to be predators, or fast legs to be able to escape and so on. And got to the human fetus and asked what it wanted, and said, "Oh, I'll just take what you gave me. I figure you made the best choice, and so." Our intellectual ability was, implied to be, our choice, I guess, but yeah, it's like, yeah,
About all
that's
we have.
yeah, exactly. That's all we have. We gave everything else up, right? We're
Maybe
we're
that's
not
why
the
we
biggest,
like,
we're not the strongest, but
and maybe that's why we like Pokemon cards and baseball cards and football cards. All these,
yeah.
collectible cards, because they all have powers. Superman, Hulk.
Mm,
They all have. They're all more powerful than we are.
yep, yeah. maybe that's reflecting back to that magic thinking. It's like, oh, they're magical. They have these powers that are like,
Yeah.
supernatural superpowers. Yeah. We like that magic aspect. Yeah.
Oh, for sure. For
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah. Wow, I think Abyss is really having some technical difficulties. He's not able to come back here. Yeah, but I think we've explored this question pretty well. Some animals are self-aware. I think that we kind of agree that they're self-aware. That a lot of animals have recognition of themselves as individuals separate from their group. I am an individual, or and they have the familial relationships. I know elephants do, and so on,
Yeah.
and but yeah, and think about their ability to think. That question tacked onto the end there. Think about their ability to think is one that I think we can all at least agree that we don't know. We
Yeah.
definitely don't answer.
That's the part that throws us for a loop.
Right. Is it possible? I'm ready to say it's possible. Is it true right now? Unknown, maybe unknowable, and but possible. I'd say it's possible.
Yeah.
I mean, lots of things are within the realm of possibility, even if they're not likely, right?
True. I would
Yeah.
think though with an ape, if they can do sign language and sign when they want a cookie, that tells me though that they're thinking about something they want to eat and they know what to do to get it.
Mm.
So they've got to be thinking about that food in order to want it to get it.
Right. Which, Let It Be wrote the question, is planning recognizing your ability to think. Yeah. And I think that's what you were talking about. So planning, so they know, okay, I need to learn, I need to be able to do this so that I can get what I want. So that's a
Right.
plan,
Or
and that's
a
clearly
mouse
thinking.
running
Yeah.
through a maze, just like a mouse running through a maze to get his food.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, cool. Yeah, but that, like I said, that last part, think about ability to think. That's
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 the
beyond us.
That's the tough part.
Yeah. Okay, I think maybe it's time to wrap things up. We've gone through the 3 questions. We spent almost an hour and a half talking about this. Any last thoughts?
I had fun.
Yeah. Okay. Great. It was nice to have you on board. Yeah. This is something that we do at this time. Every week we try to
I
do it. So
enjoy
please.
debating, even if I'm wrong. It's
Uh,
just the fact of debating that I thoroughly enjoy.
yeah. I mean, I've you know, I've tried to. I don't even like that phrase that I'm wrong or I'm right. It's I mean, which is just, to me, it should only be used as a type of shorthand for the idea that I currently hold is
Right.
correct or incorrect. Right? It's
That's
not
why I
like
call it debate, because
right.
it's
Yeah.
talk.
Exactly. The fact that the idea that I now have is actually not true or not factual, is not right, doesn't reflect on me unless I choose to stick to that belief in the face of overwhelming evidence to the contrary. Right? It's
Right.
like, then that's a reflection on me. But it's simply, based on the evidence that I have at this point, I believe such and such.
That
Yeah.
won't happen with these questions, Daniel.
That's right. That's right. It's all unknowable, but that's what makes it fun. Okay. All right. So thanks so much, Share. Thank you, Abyss, wherever you are. Sorry that you had some technical difficulties. Jeff, thank you for stopping for your part as always. Lindsay, and who else has been here? Let It Be was here. Edward, thank you from Los Angeles. Thank you for being here. William John. Don't know you, I don't think, but thank you for subscribing. And Paul Hess, also thank you for subscribing. I hope that you enjoyed our little discussion, and stop back again next week, same time, same station. Okay, thanks, Share. Thanks,
Daniel.
everyone.
All right.
Bye bye. Same station. Okay. Yeah, that went very, very well.